Welcome back, everybody. We are diving deep today
Deep, deep.
into Isaiah,
Yeah.
chapters 58 through 60.
Buckle up.
Yeah, we're talking about some really important concepts here.
Big stuff.
What does it actually mean to fast? Like, what is that all about? The consequences of our actions and this glorious future that's promised to people who turn things around. So before we jump in,
All right.
I think it's always good with Isaiah to remember, right?
Yes.
That it's all about prophecies, warnings, and promises delivered to the Israelites.
Totally. And these chapters, I think of them as like a mini series
Okay.
within Isaiah, where you see it's like that cycle of messing up and then coming back. And then that ultimate like redemption.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And you know what? It's so relevant to us today.
Oh, for sure. So let's jump into Isaiah 58.
Okay.
We find the Israelites going through the motions of fasting, right? Yeah. But God's like, hold on a second.
Something's off.
What are they missing?
It's like they're playing the part, but their hearts aren't in it. You know, Isaiah 58 calls them out on this hypocrisy. They're like so focused on this ritual of abstaining from food,
Right.
but their actions don't reflect a genuine desire for change.
So it's like checking the box.
Yes.
Rather than truly like transforming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Isaiah makes it clear that like true repentance, that's not passive.
Right.
It's about actively seeking justice, showing compassion, and breaking free from this harmful patterns.
Right. And I love verse 6, which really lays it all out there, right?
Good one.
It says, "Is this not the fast that I choose? To release the bonds of wickedness, to undo the ropes of the yoke, and to let the oppressed go free, and break every yoke."
Boom. Mic drop.
Right. Like God's saying, that's what I actually want. You're missing the point.
Right. And, you know, it challenges us to think that, like, what yokes are we carrying in our own lives?
Yeah.
What's holding us back from, like, actually living out our values or connecting more deeply with our faith? You know, are we so focused on our own comfort that we just kind of turn a blind eye to the needs of others?
It's a gut check for sure.
For sure.
And it really makes you think about those times when maybe you volunteered or you donated, but like, was there a part of you that just wanted to feel good about yourself?
Ooh, yeah.
You know, or was it pure compassion? I think that's really what Isaiah 58 is asking us.
It is. It's like, are we willing to go beyond those surface level actions and truly commit to positive change?
Yeah.
Because that's what real transformation looks like.
So Isaiah 58 kind of lays down the law
He does.
about like what the true meaning of fasting is. And then we move into Isaiah 59.
Oh,
Yeah. Things take a turn.
it gets a little darker.
It gets a little darker. What's the vibe? What are we seeing here?
It's a stark picture of what happens when we stray from those values. The Israelites, their actions have like created this chasm, this separation
Yeah.
between them and God. It's pretty bleak, honestly.
Yeah. And Isaiah is not holding back on the imagery.
No, he's not.
It's very vivid.
Very vivid.
Verse 3, "Their hands are defiled with blood, and their fingers with wrongdoing. Their lips have spoken deceit. Their tongue mutters wickedness."
Oh, it's heavy.
Yeah. And then verse 5, "They hatch vipers' eggs and weave the spider's web. The one who eats of their eggs dies, and from what is crushed, a snake breaks out."
It's like, whoa, Isaiah, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. So what's going on here?
He's basically saying sin is toxic,
Yeah.
you know, and it spreads like poison.
Yeah. And it makes you think, doesn't it, about like what's happening today?
Oh, for sure.
You know, when we allow greed, corruption, violence to just kind of run rampant, it does feel like things start to unravel.
Yes. And Isaiah 59, it's not just ancient history.
Right.
You know, it's a warning that resonates across time, saying, hey, when we choose to act against our values, there are consequences.
Yeah.
You know, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us.
Yeah. It can feel overwhelming when you look at it that way. So, like, is there any hope at this point?
Well, just when things seem their bleakest, we get this turning point in Isaiah 59.
Okay.
It's like a little glimmer of God's justice and mercy starting to peek through. It all comes down to verses 16 and 17.
Okay, let's unpack those.
All right, so verse 16. He saw that there was no one and was amazed that there was not one to intercede. Then his own arm brought salvation to him, and his righteousness upheld him. So God sees the lack of justice, and he steps in.
And then verse 17 says, "He put on righteousness like a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. And he put on garments of vengeance for clothing and wrapped himself with zeal as a cloak."
Yeah. This is where it gets really powerful. We see this imagery that foreshadows a coming Messiah
Okay.
who will ultimately redeem his people. So even though things are dark, there's a brighter future on the horizon.
So it's like a light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
But what does this Messiah actually represent? Like, I know this is a huge question.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a complex concept, right?
Mhm.
Different people have different interpretations.
Right.
Some see it very literally.
Yeah.
It's an actual person who's coming to save. Others view it more symbolically.
Right.
This kind of hope and change, like the embodiment of that.
Okay.
But ultimately, the message is clear.
Mm.
Even in the face of despair, restoration is possible.
This is where it gets interesting because chapter 60 takes that little glimmer of hope
Yeah,
and blows it wide open.
it does.
The whole tone shifts.
Yeah, it's a complete 180,
Yeah.
from that darkness of chapter 59
Mm-hmm.
to like this future glory that awaits Zion, which is, of course, symbolic of God's people.
Right. And verse 1 kicks it all off with a bang.
Yes, it does.
It says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you." Now, you said Zion represents God's people.
Yeah.
Does that mean that this promise of restoration, is it only for a specific group or religion?
That is a question people have wrestled with for centuries.
Yeah.
Um, and some interpretations, they focus very literally,
Okay.
on Zion as a place, a physical location or as a specific nation.
Right.
But I think there's also room for a broader view,
Okay.
a more universal view.
So even if you don't subscribe to a particular faith, you can still find meaning.
Totally. I think those core themes of Isaiah 58 through 60, this call to act justly, to show compassion, to seek, deeper connection,
Yeah.
to something greater than ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, these ideas, they resonate across cultures and belief systems.
It's a powerful thought. Right. It means that anyone, regardless of their background, can tap into this wisdom and
Yeah.
apply it to their own life.
Absolutely. It's a message of hope and transformation that invites us all to strive for a better world, both for ourselves and for everyone around us.
I'm starting to see how these chapters kind of fit together.
Yeah.
We've got the call to action in 58, the consequences of ignoring it in 59, and then this vision of what's possible when we get it right in 60. But before we jump into that vision,
Okay.
let's pause for a second.
Oh, wait.
We've covered a lot. It can be a lot to process.
It is. It's like we've been on this roller coaster
Yeah.
through these chapters, experiencing the depths of despair and then the heights of hope all in a few pages.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And that roller coaster is not over yet. We still need to unpack Isaiah 60 and really understand what this transformation could look like.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, because in part 2, we're going to get into the details of that vision and explore how those ancient promises, might still be relevant to us in the 21st century.
Okay. So that vision of transformation in Isaiah 60, it's not just about individual souls finding their way back, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this bigger picture of like society being rebuilt,
Mm-hmm.
this world where things actually work the way they should.
And it gets pretty specific, right? Like, we're talking camels loaded with treasure, nations drawn to this light, a city decked out in gold and the finest wood. It's like Isaiah took every symbol of abundance and just crammed it into this chapter.
Right. So, and what I find so fascinating here is this link that Isaiah makes between like interchange and the outward results, right?
Yeah.
Remember, Zion represents God's people. So it's not just about personal salvation, right? It's about a whole community thriving.
Yeah.
Because its very foundation is different.
So it's like saying when people get right with God, it has a ripple effect outward.
Exactly. And notice how the language goes beyond just like basic needs.
Yeah.
It's not just about having enough,
Mm-hmm.
but it's about beauty, about things being excellent. This world where God's blessings are so overflowing, they spill into every corner of life.
I'll admit, it's hard to picture that when you look at the world today. I mean, wars, poverty, environmental disasters. It feels a bit like Isaiah was being a little overly optimistic, don't you think?
I think it's important to remember Isaiah is speaking prophetically here,
Okay.
painting a picture of what could be, right? Not necessarily what's guaranteed to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't make it meaningless.
Right.
It shows us the potential. the direction things can move in if we choose a different path.
Okay, so let's bring it back down to earth for a second.
All right.
Back in Isaiah 58, we were talking about taking action, right? Helping others, fighting for justice. But how do we know we're doing that stuff for the right reasons? Like, it's so easy to get caught up in wanting to look good, even when it comes to, like, good deeds.
Right. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because Isaiah doesn't hand us a checklist.
Right.
Here's how to measure your sincerity. He's pushing us to examine our hearts.
Mm.
Why are we doing what we're doing? What's the driving force behind our actions?
Yeah, anyone can put on a show of being helpful or devout. But what's going on beneath the surface? Are we genuinely moved by love and compassion?
Right.
Or are we just chasing approval?
You hit the nail on the head. True righteousness, it's not about following rules or impressing other people.
Right.
It's about aligning our internal compass with a greater good and letting that guide our actions.
So it's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix,
Totally.
but like a constant effort to be better.
Yes. And it's not just about personal growth, right?
Mm.
Isaiah keeps bringing it back to this interconnectedness. We're part of a web. And even small acts of kindness, of justice, they can like ripple outwards, impacting more than we realize.
I'm starting to get how these chapters really build on each other. You have the call to action in 58,
Yeah.
the consequences of ignoring it in 59, and then this grand vision of what's possible when we get it right in 60. There's this one line in chapter 60 that always gets me. It says, "No longer will you have the sun for light by day, nor will the moon give you light for brightness, but you will have the Lord as an everlasting light and your God as your glory."
What's Isaiah getting at here? It feels like a pretty big statement.
It is a big statement. Think about it. The sun and the moon, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Right? But they're still like finite sources of light. What Isaiah's describing here is a different kind of illumination. Like God's presence is this everlasting light that shines even when everything else seems dark.
So it's like saying when we're in tune with God, we tap into a source of strength and guidance that never runs out no matter what we're facing.
Beautifully put. It's this reminder that even in our darkest moments, we're not truly alone. That everlasting light is always there, leading us towards a life filled with purpose and meaning. Man, that's deep. It makes you think about those times when you felt completely lost or hopeless. Could it be that even then, that light was still present, even if we couldn't see it at the time?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah.
And I think it's at the heart of what Isaiah is trying to convey. Even when we can't see the path ahead, right? Even when we feel like we're stumbling in the darkness, there's this guiding light leading us towards something greater.
Yeah. It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of these chapters, right? They invite us to engage with them on a deeper level, to ponder their meaning and allow them to challenge our perspectives.
Exactly. It's not just about reading the words, right? It's about letting those words spark something within us, prompting us to think differently, act differently, and ultimately become the best versions of ourselves.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground, from the call to action in Isaiah 58 to the consequences of inaction in Isaiah 59, and finally, this inspiring vision of transformation and hope in Isaiah 60. But before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one more piece of the puzzle I want to explore, and it's that question of balancing individual growth with the collective good. How do we reconcile those two things? Is it possible to focus on our own spiritual journey while also working towards a better world for everyone?
That's a great question, and one that's particularly relevant today, right? When we're constantly bombarded with these messages about self-improvement, about finding our individual purpose. But Isaiah offers us a different perspective, one that emphasizes the importance of community and interconnectedness.
So it's not an either situation. We don't have to choose between focusing on ourselves or focusing on the world around us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Isaiah suggests that true transformation happens when we recognize that our individual growth is intertwined with the well-being of others. When we commit to living out our values, it naturally ripples outward, impacting our communities and the world at large.
But how do we know if we're actually making a difference?
Right.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of global issues, poverty, injustice, climate change. How can our small actions possibly matter in the face of such enormous challenges?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's something a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah.
We can feel powerless. Like our individual actions are just a drop in the ocean. But remember what we were talking about earlier. Even small acts of kindness and justice, they could have this ripple effect.
Right. We may not see the immediate impact of our choices, but that doesn't mean they're not making a difference.
Think of it this way. Every time we choose compassion over indifference, every time we speak out against injustice, every time we make a conscious effort to live more sustainably, we're contributing to a collective shift in consciousness. We're adding our voice to a chorus of change makers who are working to create a more just and compassionate world.
It's like a chain reaction where each individual act of kindness or courage, it inspires others to do the same.
Yes.
And it creates this wave of positive change that spreads.
Exactly. And Isaiah reminds us that even if we don't see the full realization of that vision in our lifetime,
Right.
the act of striving towards it, that's what truly matters. It's about aligning ourselves with a greater purpose, knowing that we're a part of something bigger than ourselves.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all ties together. We've explored the call to action in Isaiah 58, the consequences of inaction in Isaiah 59, the inspiring vision of transformation in Isaiah 60, and now this crucial connection between individual growth and collective good. It's been a wild ride through these chapters. And I feel like we've barely scratched the surface.
It's true. I mean, these chapters, they're packed with so much wisdom and depth that we could spend hours unpacking their meaning. But I think we've touched on some key takeaways that can help us navigate our own lives and contribute to a better world.
Absolutely. We've talked about the importance of genuine repentance, the interconnectedness of our actions, the transformative power of God's presence, and the link between personal growth and collective good. It's a lot to process, but I think it's a conversation worth having.
I agree. And remember, this isn't just about, passively absorbing information. It's about taking these insights and allowing them to shape our choices, our relationships, our approach to the world around us.
Well said. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into Isaiah 58:60. But don't go anywhere, because in part 3, we'll tackle one final question that I think will really get you thinking. We'll explore how to ensure our actions are motivated by genuine love and compassion rather than a desire for recognition or praise. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Isaiah 58:60. And like we promised, we've got one last question to tackle, a big one. We've talked about, genuine action, aligning our deeds with our values. But how do we know our hearts are truly in the right place?
Yeah.
How do we avoid, doing good things for the wrong reasons?
That really gets to the heart of Isaiah's message, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in, the optics of it all.
Right.
Wanting to be seen as good, as righteous. But Isaiah pushes us to go deeper, examine the motivations behind our actions.
So it's not enough to just, do the right thing. There's a whole other layer
Totally.
of, intention.
Yeah. Think back to Isaiah 58.
Where God's calling out the Israelites for their hypocritical fasting.
Right.
They were going through the motions, but their hearts weren't in it.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to avoid. We can't let that desire for recognition, for praise, overshadow the genuine desire to make a difference.
It makes you wonder, how many times have we done something good, but with a less than pure motive? Maybe you volunteered to impress somebody or donated for the tax write-off.
Right. It's humbling when you think about it.
It is. But it's also, I think, a crucial step in our growth. Right?
Absolutely.
Recognizing those moments of ego-driven action, it allows us to course correct.
For sure.
And move towards a place of more authenticity.
Yeah, authenticity and integrity. Those are the key words.
So how do we actually do that? How do we shift from, performing good deeds to genuinely embodying those values?
It's a process, right?
Yeah.
No easy answer. But I think a key part of it is cultivating humility. When we approach things with a humble heart, we're less worried about appearances.
Right.
And more focused on, the genuine impact we're having.
So it's about letting go of that need to be seen as the hero, the savior, realizing we're just a small part of something so much bigger.
Exactly. It's surrendering that ego-driven desire for recognition and instead focusing on the act of service itself.
Yeah.
Finding joy in the giving, not in the receiving of praise.
It's like that concept of detachment you hear about,
Yes.
In different spiritual traditions. Doing the work without being attached to the outcome.
That's a great connection. It's a powerful practice to cultivate. When we detach from that need for recognition, Our actions become more authentic,
Right.
more aligned with our true values.
And it takes the pressure off too,
It
right?
does.
You're not constantly worried about how you look. You can just focus on showing up and doing what you believe is right.
Exactly. It frees us from that burden of self-promotion
Right.
and allows us to tap into a more genuine source of motivation.
So, okay, someone's listening to this right now. They're feeling inspired to take action, but maybe they're struggling with that like tug of war, you know,
Yeah.
between genuine compassion and those ego desires. What advice would you offer them?
First, I'd say don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
We all struggle with this stuff. The fact that you're aware of that tension is a sign of growth in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to move towards more authentic action, try starting small.
Okay.
Find a cause that really resonates with you, something that speaks to your heart, not just your ego.
So don't just jump on the latest trend.
Right.
Try to impress people with some grand gesture. Find something that moves you
Yes.
and focus on making a difference there.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress.
Yeah.
It's about showing up consistently, even in small ways, and letting your actions be guided by love, by compassion, and a genuine desire to make a difference.
It's that reminder that true change starts from within, right?
Mhm.
Aligning our hearts with a greater good and letting that inner transformation guide our actions.
Beautifully said. And ultimately, that's the legacy of Isaiah 58:60. It's a call to step into our full potential, not for our own gain, but for the betterment of ourselves, our communities, and the world at large.
Wow, we've covered so much in this deep dive. Authentic action, the weight of our choices, the power of hope, and that crucial link between personal growth and the collective good. It's been a journey.
It really has, and I hope it's been insightful for everyone listening. Remember, this isn't about passively taking in information. It's about taking these insights and letting them shape our lives, our relationships, our approach to the world.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final thought. What small act of kindness, compassion, or justice can you commit to today?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be grand or flashy.
No.
Just something simple, something heartfelt, something aligned with your values, because even the smallest ripple can create a wave of change. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.